There's a message drifting in the air. If you listen, you will notice music everywhere. This bridge is made of hope. This bridge is made of hope. In this world of hunger, war, and strife, we can together, all included, build a better life. This bridge is made of hope. Side by side, hope. This bridge is made of hope. Side by side, hope. This bridge is made of hope. Side by side, hope. This bridge is made of hope. Side by side,
Hello, Ivy here. This week's podcast is entitled When a Narcissist Demands You Return to Your Place on Their Chessboard. Episode 126. Introduction. In this week's podcast, we will look at what is narcissism, symptoms of a narcissist's manipulation, what happens when a narcissist loses control over you, where does a narcissist's need for control come from? Common narcissist behaviours when their needs aren't met. What is narcissism? While the word narcissism and the phrase narcissist control have almost become mainstream, there is a huge debate. As this review of the controversies in narcissism explains, there are various models and theories that attempt to define narcissism. The key point to note is that there's a range of symptoms from healthy narcissism to pathological narcissistic personality disorder. While the media quickly calls these people vain and self-centered, they are usually deeply insecure. This insecurity makes them feel so vulnerable that they need constant validation. Without this validation, they may quickly become narcissistic control freaks, in a misguided attempt to protect their fragile self-esteem. So, how does a narcissist react when they can't control you? They'll do anything to regain that control, to feel in power and assertively. Symptoms of a narcissist's manipulation. What does a narcissist mean when they brag about their achievements, lie or antagonize you? It all comes down to trying to hide a deep shame by attempting to control you. As children, either controlling or dismissive parents may have crushed their self-esteem. Narcissists often lie, infantilize, and gaslight you. They can put you down, and yet they crave your admiration. These tactics are all an attempt to control you because they artificially boost your self-esteem by exerting their power. These are all quotes, by the way, from various reference sources listed as usual at the end of the article. Sadly, narcissists destroy who they cannot control. There's no escaping this fact unless you do something about it. Try to remember that it's rarely with malicious intent. Most narcissists aren't aware of their behaviours, which is why their rage can seem so out of control. Essentially, they're only reacting to feeling lost and confused. They feel no empathy for others, but are at a complete loss regarding their emotions. So what does happen when a narcissist loses control over you? A narcissist losing control can be truly terrifying. Depending on the type of narcissist you're dealing with, they can become aggressive, violent, or withdrawn, while isolating you from the outside world. The question might now be, how does a narcissist act according to the different types? So, you could be dealing with an overbearing, overt narcissist, or the paranoid narcissist who projects their flaws onto you. You might face a narcissistic collapse at the extreme end of the scale. Essentially, losing control over you or your environment is highly triggering for a narcissist. When a narcissist loses power, you'll see them revert to pure emotion, completely out of control. So, how does a narcissist react when they can't control you? If they are so triggered, they'll lash out at you verbally and physically. They'll essentially do anything to cover the shame of being humiliated or stressed to such levels. When a narcissist realizes your refusal to be controlled, they panic because their demands are no longer met. They'll become coercive, manipulative, and potentially aggressive. On the other hand, they might become superficially charming to lure you back in before they start controlling you again. Where does a narcissist's need for control come from? Narcissism lies on a spectrum. While we all need a healthy amount of narcissism to be confident enough to live our lives, extreme narcissism is devastating for everyone involved. The problem with narcissists is that their issues are so deep that they rarely see the need for change. Dr. Jeffrey Young specifically developed the schema therapy to help those particularly resistant, like most narcissists. His therapy also gives us an understanding of where it all comes from. It helps us understand the question, how does a narcissist react when they can't control? Schemas, or maladaptive reactions and beliefs, come from traumatic experiences, especially during childhood. Without a supportive family network, narcissists develop deeply held beliefs of mistrust, perfectionism, and shame. These beliefs then translate into what we call narcissistic manipulation. The coping behaviours they learn to hide the pain of shame and mistrust blow up as the controlling bully, paranoid perfectionist, or overbearing fanatic. In summary, when a narcissist can't control you, all the pain from the past comes up to the surface. Imagine a caged wild animal desperate to be set free. What does the narcissist mean when they brag about their achievements, lie, or antagonize you? It all comes down to trying to hide a deep shame by attempting to control you. That's why what happens when a narcissist loses control is frightening. They can be physically violent, and you should prioritize your safety. Simply walk away. A useful next step is to reach out to narcissistic support groups. Common narcissist behaviours when their needs aren't met. The things to expect when a narcissist's needs aren't met include physical and verbal violence. When narcissists lose control over their environment, their needs aren't met, so they panic and become reactive. They might also become vindictive and manipulative behind the scenes, so they'll lie to your friends and family so they can all turn against you. When narcissists can no longer control you, they might even go online and create rumours and stories about you. Alternatively, they'll give you the silent treatment and make you feel like you've done something wrong. So the covert narcissist will blame everyone else and become highly defensive. On the flip side, an overt narcissist might become exploitative, but the antagonistic one will fight. At this point, you might be wondering, how do you actually control a narcissist? The short answer is that you can't. If you do try, you'll only trigger the issues that led them to become a narcissist. Remember that they're often controlling to counteract previously controlling parents. Nevertheless, you can be assertive with a narcissist and make yourself heard. The first step is to ensure you're not in any physical danger. How does a narcissist react to being blocked? There are 12 ways of conduct. Far more detail in the article. I'm just going to give a summary of the 12. Blocking a narcissist is a decision that many individuals contemplate when dealing with the challenges of interacting with someone who exhibits narcissistic personality traits. Narcissism is a complex and often problematic personality disorder, characterized by an inflated sense of self-importance, a constant need for admiration, a lack of empathy for others, and a tendency to manipulate and exploit those around them for personal gain. If you don't know how does narcissists react to being blocked, dealing with them can be emotionally draining, frustrating, and even detrimental to one's well-being. The decision to block a narcissist, whether on social media or in other forms of communication, is a matter of personal choice and depends on various factors. It can be a protective measure to safeguard one's mental and emotional health. Blocking a narcissist can help create boundaries, minimize exposure to the manipulative tactics, and reduce the negative impact they have on your life. However, it's important to consider the context of your relationship with the narcissist, potential consequences, and your own well-being when making this decision. Let's understand the reasons one might consider blocking the narcissist, the potential benefits and drawbacks, and alternative strategies for dealing with them effectively. 12 behavioural examples. Blocking a narcissist can trigger a range of reactions, as they often have a fragile ego and are highly sensitive to perceived threats to their self-esteem and control. While the specific response may vary depending on the individual and the nature of your relationship with them, here are 12 ways that a narcissist may react when they discover they have been blocked. 1. Rage and outbursts. When a narcissist realizes they have been blocked, they can react with explosive anger. This intense rage is a response to the perceived threat to their control and ego. They may flood your inbox with furious messages, leave voicemails filled with expletives, or even show up at your doorstep in a fit of fury. This reaction stems from their inability to handle rejection and their desperate need for admiration and validation. 2. Attempts to manipulate. Narcissists are skilled manipulators, and when blocked, they often resort to cunning tactics to regain control. They may try to manipulate you into unblocking them by using guilt, flattery, or empty promises to change their ways. They'll minimize their own harmful behaviors and shift blame onto you, attempting to play on your emotions and vulnerabilities. 3. Victim playing. Some narcissists adopt a victim mentality when they've been blocked. They cast themselves as the injured party, claiming that you've wronged them by blocking them and portraying you as the aggressor. This manipulative tactic is aimed at eliciting sympathy and support from others, making it appear as though you're the one who has done something wrong. 4. Smear campaigns. To protect their image and control the narrative, narcissists may launch a smear campaign against you when blocked. They may spread false information, gossip, or negative stories about you to damage your credibility and isolate you from mutual friends or acquaintances. This strategy is designed to maintain their facade of superiority while tarnishing your reputation. 5. Hoovering. Hoovering is a tactic where the narcissist attempts to draw you back into their life after you've cut ties. When blocked, they may oscillate between periods of intense remorse and nostalgia. During these phases, they'll send messages filled with regret and affection, seeking to lure you back into their manipulative web. 6. Gaslighting. Narcissists often employ gaslighting techniques to make you doubt your own perception of reality. When blocked, they may claim that you're overreacting, imagining things, or misinterpreting their actions. Gaslighting is intended to make you second-guess your decision to block them and question your own judgment. 7. Silent treatment. Some narcissists respond to being blocked with the silent treatment. They'll withhold communication for an extended period, banking on your fear of abandonment to prompt you to unblock them and seek their approval. This tactic is used to regain control and power over the situation. 8. Creating alternate accounts. In the digital age, narcissists may go to a great length to circumvent the block. They might create fake social media profiles or use the accounts of friends or family members to continue monitoring your life. This persistence underscores their determination to maintain control and access to your information. 9. Stalking and harassment. In extreme cases, the narcissist's reaction to being blocked can escalate to stalking or harassment. They may follow you physically, spy on your online activities, or make unwelcome advances, causing significant distress and potentially leading to legal consequences. 10. Sudden charm offensive. When blocked, some narcissists switch tactics and suddenly become excessively charming and apologetic. They may shower you with gifts, compliments, and promises of change in a bid to regain your favour and access to your life. This charm offensive is a manipulative ploy to regain control over the relationship. 11. Threats and ultimatums. In moments of desperation, narcissists may resort to issuing threats or ultimatums when blocked. They may employ emotional manipulation, such as threatening self-harm or legal action, to coerce you into unblocking them. The specific nature of the threat can vary depending on the narcissist's personality and available resources. 12. Seeking allies. Narcissists may reach out to mutual friends, family members, or acquaintances when blocked, attempting to recruit allies who can pressure you to unblock them. They may manipulate others into believing their version of events, casting you as the wrongdoer and portraying themselves as the victim. Having a narcissist controlling you can sometimes be because you also suffer from damaged self-esteem. Perhaps you grew up with a narcissist and subconsciously you're recreating what you know from your past. Codependency is another trait that narcissists are attracted to. How to stop being controlled in a relationship means not getting triggered. Anger and confrontation only add fuel to the fire. The non-violent communication framework is critical for connecting with your narcissist and rebuilding a healthy partnership. Don't fall into the trap of the consequences of how does a narcissist react when they can't control. What happens if you take control away from a narcissist? Essentially, they panic and can quickly become narcissistic control freaks. When or if the narcissist knows that you figured them out, you will also see that taking power away from a narcissist can cause them to resort to projection. This is a subconscious defense mechanism where they accuse you of their flaws and fears. When you get into this phase, focus on your self-care. Stop trying to please subconsciously and create distance. The other option is to manage them, especially for those you choose to keep in your life. In those cases, set clear boundaries and practice non-violent communications with empathy. When a narcissist loses their grip on their environment, things can quickly escalate into a narcissistic collapse. In those cases, how does a narcissist react when they can't control you? Essentially, they retaliate. With such retaliation, you need to consider how to take control away from a narcissist. It's easier to walk away from a narcissist you no longer need. If you're married or related to one, it's about managing them with as few outbursts as possible. Some of you might be squirming at the idea of validating a narcissist. Remember, though, that they need it to stay stable. When a narcissist can't control you, they get triggered. Instead, support their world if you must, but bring in boundaries gently but firmly. What happens when a narcissist realizes they have lost you? Once a narcissist recognizes they've lost control or admiration, their response varies from desperate attempts to regain influence to intense anger, often fueled by wounded pride and a fear of abandonment. How do they feel when you move on? Narcissists react with a mix of emotions: rage, jealousy, and a bruised ego. They may attempt to undermine your new relationship or engage in manipulation to reassert control, revealing their deep-seated insecurities and inability to handle rejection. I'm imagining that so far, as I'm going through some of these behavioural traits of narcissists, one or two, possibly three people come to mind. Certainly when I was going through this, I thought of three individuals, two more than the other person, but certainly three names came to mind, and almost every paragraph I've got here and every heading, one or more of those three I could easily map across. And I don't even know them personally. I'm just going on by what their friends write about them every day. Narcissistic rage occurs when a narcissist's belief about their perceived importance or grandiosity are confronted. In turn, they respond with extreme anger towards the perceived threat. Whether narcissistic rage results from criticism, losing control, or minor setbacks, being on the receiving end can be terrifying. Therefore, knowing how to respond to narcissistic rage is essential. Narcissistic rage, a term first coined by psychoanalyst Heinz Kohut, is a sudden and powerful outburst of anger, aggression, and violence from an individual with narcissistic personality disorder. The behaviour occurs when the negative feedback that a narcissist receives causes discomfort and their defence mechanisms are activated. Once given a dose of their own medicine, narcissists become emotionally, psychologically, physically, or verbally abusive. Upon recognizing that direct exposure threatens their idealized false identity, narcissists will blow up to deflect from the underlying issue. The rage associated with narcissistic injury ranges from mild irritation to outright physical attacks. Some narcissists will gaslight, deflect, project, verbally assault, or experience a narcissistic collapse. Depending on the severity of the injury, others may become physically aggressive or incredibly dangerous. The question, are narcissists dangerous, can be a legitimate concern, so appropriate caution should be considered. Typical response to offence versus narcissistic rage. While reacting to criticism or offence with upset and irritation is normal, any mild negative remark can trigger feelings of rejection for the narcissist. Their response will be far beyond a typical level of anger or minor emotional meltdown many people experience from time to time. The first line of attack might be brutal shouting, screaming, and ridiculous accusations against you. The signs of narcissistic rage may not initially appear different than sudden outbursts from friends and loved ones. Narcissistic rage can either be explosive or passive. Explosive narcissistic rage, includes outward displays of aggression, such as insults or harmful behaviours. Conversely, passive narcissistic rage may resemble sulking, pouting, or ignoring others. Understanding what triggers a narcissistic anger can be difficult, especially when the narcissist blames a person or the situation for their outbursts. However, careful attention and analysis will point to signs of narcissistic rage. Common signs of narcissistic rage include a bout of anger that is disproportionate to the triggering stressor, a rage that may quickly end and never be discussed again, anger that results in verbal or physical aggression, threatening or following through with self-harm behaviours, frustrations that stem from not getting their own way, inability to control anger and emotions, intentionally inflicting physical harm on others, passive-aggressive behaviour, cutting a person off entirely, withdrawing or using the silent treatment with someone. Narcissistic rage is common for those with this disorder as they grow increasingly angry with any display of vulnerability. This anger can be triggered when they are called out, their image has been damaged, or their shortcomings or wrongdoings are highlighted. The narcissist will use this rage to deflect from and overshadow the true issues. Narcissists truly believe that the world revolves around them and that their needs are superior and more important than anyone else's. When they do not get their way, narcissists feel a loss of control, resulting in bouts of rage as a way to regain the upper hand. Being exposed for one's actions bring vulnerability. For narcissists, this emotion is an uncomfortable or an unbearable experience. For example, if their delusions of grandeur are put on display or inadequacies are highlighted, they might react with anger to avoid shame or accountability. Upholding and maintaining their image is what makes a narcissist thrive. Being held accountable for hurting or abusing someone directly targets their ego and induces shame. Reacting with anger, deflection, and fury allows the narcissist to pivot the direction of a situation away from owning up to their mistakes and behaviour. There are far more examples of rage in the article and even more so in the reference sources. You can read at your leisure, and you may well think you're reading parts of Spare. That's all I will say. And a quick summary now, literally just one-liners, stages of a narcissistic rage cycle. Stress. A narcissist may subconsciously ignore anger for a moment when met with a stressful trigger. Anxiety. After becoming stressed, the anger begins to seep through in small ways, such as outward displays of anxiety. Agitation and frustration. Eventually, and often very fast, the narcissist shows the first signs of anger through words or facial expressions. Rage. Finally, a narcissistic rage fit occurs with visible acts of aggression and loss of temper. Possible narcissistic rage examples include: the narcissist breaks all of the glasses in the house if a guest notices a smudge on one while taking a drink. The narcissist punches a hole in the wall if their child does not finish first in a race at school. The narcissist verbally abuses their spouse for 3 hours when they have not cleaned the house to their standard. The narcissist destroys a public bathroom after a stranger criticizes their dirty car. The narcissist slashes the tyres of a co-worker who received a promotion over them. The narcissist hits their spouse or children because they caused embarrassment. There is a section of bullet points giving some examples of the negative impacts of someone going into a narcissistic rage. I'm not going to read them out, you'll see them in the article, and you can see that and more in reference sources. Just to give you one bullet point, and it gives you an idea of the kind of things. Familial conflict. Narcissistic rage results in family dysfunction, even estrangement if the anger escalates. It can be difficult for family members to engage with someone who is constantly on edge and blames everyone else for their issues. I'll mention one more as it's a short bullet point. Physical harm to self or others. A fit of rage could escalate to physical harm, such as hitting someone or punching the wall during an argument. There is a very detailed section on tips for when you're faced with someone with narcissistic rage. It's quite detailed. I think I wouldn't do justice if I just read a couple of lines from each of the headings, but I do highly recommend that you read this section in detail when you have the time. There are 10 bullet points giving examples of what can happen within a home setting. Like I said, I wouldn't do it justice if I did it just a summary of a couple of lines here or there. I think it is well worth reading, and I am 100% certain that it will give you food for thought on a range of events that we read about almost daily in our tabloids, and see for ourselves within certain circles what is going on. And this section is just general headings about how to respond to narcissistic rage in a variety of locations, not just the home. The more reaction you give to narcissistic rage, the more you are fueling the fire. Remember that the rage isn't personal, even though it feels like it. Set boundaries with a narcissist and stick to them. Don't engage, and don't try to debate with them. When narcissists are in an angry state of mind, they cannot think clearly, and there is no reasoning with them. It's okay to ignore them or walk away to protect yourself if they're becoming rageful or violent. In the workplace. This one is quite a detailed section, and again, I'm not going to go through all of it, but I've put the links there for the reference sources, and I've put a few extracts in the article. This one talks about setting your limits. Being around a narcissist will test your limits. Rather than constantly flexing your needs and wants, be stable and consistent. When the line is crossed, it's time to move on. And that relates to working with someone with narcissistic tendencies and rage. In a romantic relationship, pay close attention to their triggers. If you are in a relationship with a narcissist, this can take a lot of work and patience, as these triggers may look different from those you've seen in past relationships or partners. Make time to reassess the relationship when needed and establish what you're willing to put up with moving forward. Abuse in any form is never acceptable. You are never obligated to stay in the relationship. In a friendship, if you have a narcissistic friend, establish clear boundaries with them to avoid becoming their punching bag. Just like with a romantic partner, it's okay to take breaks from them and allow them space to cool down before you speak again. Knowing when to end a friendship is critical when handling narcissistic rage. If a stranger lashes out at you with anger, whether it be narcissistic rage or typical rage, there is no reason to stay and argue with them. Doing so will only escalate the situation and lead to further frustration. Additionally, you cannot know if they may become violent when you respond. Remove yourself from the situation to prevent harm to yourself and possibly others. Coping with your rage as a narcissist. If you are struggling to deal with your own rage, self-awareness is the first step in addressing it. While you already know that you are prone to outbursts of anger and aggression, you may not realise how this impacts your loved ones. Learning how to respond in healthy ways to triggers, seeking the help of a professional, or practicing anger management techniques are all productive ways to help curb your anger. Seek professional treatment. Narcissism is too intense and too challenging to manage without mental health treatment, but it is possible to change your behaviours. Start therapy and attend consistently. Letting people know your patterns. Rage is not acceptable, but if you warn people ahead of time, it could help maintain your relationships. Use your coping skills. Therapists will offer a wide range of healthy coping skills for anger. Accept them, practice them, and use them when the situation calls for it. Isolate when necessary. If you are feeling like a bomb just waiting to explode, stay by yourself for a bit. Once the period of rage passes, test yourself by re-emerging into your relationships slowly. Join a support group. Learning how others have handled their anger when triggered can teach you coping skills to use on your own. And the last section of this podcast is summing up what we've just been discussing, and hopefully it will give you food for thought. Summing up. How does a narcissist react when they can't control you? In short, narcissists destroy who they cannot control unless they do something about it. In violent cases, taking power away from a narcissist involves walking away and keeping yourself safe. Overall, a narcissist controlling you is not sustainable for your mental health. It will destroy your self-esteem and could trigger other issues, including anxiety and depression. Nevertheless, sometimes our issues fuel the dynamic with narcissists. You can then learn to be assertive and empathetic in establishing your boundaries. The more you share your inner compassion and strength, the more the narcissist can connect to and possibly even heal their inner child with time. Look for the signs of what is and has been happening for quite some time within the British royal family. From the way the Royal Rota have presented articles about such behaviour in respect of two prominent royals, almost every bullet point relates to one or both of the senior royals in question. Dependent upon who the Royal Rota want to make feel uncomfortable, Possibly because they have not kept up their side of the invisible contract, the other half of the worrisome duo will be praised by performing an everyday task. The role of being difficult or compliant moves between the two like a revolving door. When it comes to anyone considered close to either of those protagonists, they have decided how much is worth enduring and risking one's personal safety for the apparent pile of metaphoric gold at the end. Is the end worth the means? The receiving of the prize at the end? Is it better to consider one's mental health and protect that instead, by removing oneself from the arena and setting boundaries to ensure that lines are clearly established and cannot be crossed for a considerable amount of years has passed by? We have touched on in this podcast how rage can be triggered and how it can be projected on the chosen target as a deflection from recognizing and taking responsibility for one's own behaviour. It is comparatively easy to link behaviour and the efforts made to damage the lifestyle, aims or plans of those of their chosen victim. When that does not work, panic sets in, and then the demands are made, painting the return to the royal circus as being their duty, where there is none. The royal family is not into conscription, at least is not described as that officially. But out of sheer pride of a narcissistic personality, they do not want to lose face and be seen as needing their whipping boy back in the fold. The answer is to get their pals in the royal rota to bombard the tabloids with tales of how the one who escaped must return and why. The whipping boy mentality is still alive and well on the plantation behind gilded gates. Babies deliberately brought into the world to be a spare for the older sibling high in the line of succession, and told that they can have no personal aspirations and it is their duty to serve their sibling and take the fall for his or her wrongdoings. Whipping boys were told that they could never leave and that they would be given a nice education and wear nice clothes, as if that somehow took away the suffering for deeds that they did not commit. One could easily consider the plight of slaves who dared to try and leave their slave masters. They too were hunted down and brought back, or lost their life in the process. Modern-day spares have security taken away from them and their whereabouts given to the British media. Their home in the UK taken away from them. Official documents state that the death of the current spare, who is spare in the eyes of the royal family alone, because in the world outside of the UK, that person is a husband and father and a successful business owner and philanthropist. It states that the death of the current spare would have limited impact on the people of the UK. Funny how the 7-year and counting campaign to force this person back to the plantation has been using up public funds to travel the globe trying to garner support for help to get the modern-day slave to return home. Slavery is not a legal activity. You cannot force people to stay with you when you need credibility on so many fronts in the world, and you equally cannot discard him when he's no longer needed a few years down the line. The Human Rights Act explains that quite clearly, and international law is not something that needs to match the comic books and publications and laws the UK wants to wave in Parliament when it comes to people's rights. The narcissists in the British royal family have been created by their upbringing. It is no coincidence that those heading for the golden chair and hat that has its own chauffeur, or those who have occupied that golden chair in the past, have become troubled adults. Time for that cycle to be broken. The person who those in the royals refer to the one who escaped their clutches as a spare. That is an insult. The huge cottage industry that has grown out of having a non-elected family with invisible boundary lines into various aspects of public life, along with being allowed to be exempt from laws of the land, ensures that the law is not equal. And until it applies to everyone in the UK, it is debatable how authentic sentences of members of the public are applied just because they were born to different parentage. The antics of the last 7 to 8 years continue to prove the double standards every single day, and the UK is bordering very close to overstepping its perceived powers in various locations around the world. International human rights is going to be one of the main pillars that will ensure certain activities within the monarchy will not be ignored, for the sake of those who have been targeted over the years, including some who are no longer alive. The circus created by the current incumbents of the plantation behind the Gilded Gates is not one where people can be forced to perform. Modern-day circuses do not wish to see people and animals forced to jump through hoops for others' entertainment, or to risk their life for others standing behind the metaphorical safety barriers. All forms of life deserve their place, and the laws of the land should apply to everyone too. If the ringmaster does not feel confident in the ring, then remove him or herself from it. Simple. If there is no other ringmaster rushing forward to take the place, maybe there is a message in there somewhere. Time to read the quality news journals written outside of the UK, and hopefully it will give the monarchy family food for thought. And so ends this week's podcast. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. As I said, it was very, very easy to make linkages between most paragraphs to individuals. I look forward, as usual, to your comments on Sunday night onwards. It's bye from me. Bye from Ivy. Bye.